All right, welcome back. So we talked about how we can define variables before, but let's go over it again because again, it's a very important concept, of course, in MATLAB. So again, what we have here is basically just the main window from MATLAB. And here in the center, we have what's called the command window. And on the right, we have the workspace. So to define variables in MATLAB, we need to define them in the command window, and then they're gonna get saved in the workspace over here on the right. So for example, if I type x equals 3, and notice over here on the right that the workspace is empty for now. If I type x equals 3 and hit enter, that's not only gonna tell me here in the command window x equals 3, of course, but it's also going to save the value of that variable over here on the right on the workspace. So again, my variable over here would be x and its value is 3. So I could do the same thing again if I redefine it as x equals 5, and let me actually put a semicolon now. And again, remember that when we put a semicolon, basically MATLAB does not return the result, but it still executes the command. As we can see over here on the right, the variable got redefined to 5 instead of 3. So the command, of course, got executed. It's just that we don't get the result here in the command window because we put a semicolon at the end of the command. Now, if I type now x in here and hit enter, MATLAB is going to tell me, okay, x is equal to whatever we defined it as previously. Now, for example, if I say y and hit enter, we haven't defined y yet. So we haven't defined a variable that's called y. And of course, then MATLAB tells me unrecognized function or variable quotes y. Because again, we haven't defined it yet. So of course, it doesn't know what y is. Now, I could say though, y equals 2 times x, for example. And because I've defined x before, now MATLAB knows what to assign to the value of y, even though it's an equation for y. So now if I hit enter, of course, again, we defined x over here at the top, x equals y. Now I'm telling MATLAB y equals 2x. Since x equals 5, then 2 times 5, of course, is 10. And notice over here again on the right in the workspace that MATLAB saved the variable y and it has a value of 10. Now I could redefine this again and I could say y equals, let's say something like 2 times the sine of x plus 2. So of course I'm just writing here something random, but the point that I'm trying to make here is that once you type a new command for a variable, that value gets redefined here in the workspace. And again, the other point here is that in the workspace, what gets saved is the last command where you define that variable. So if you define a variable once, like we did here, y equals 2 times x, and then we redefine it later on with another command, then MATLAB overwrites the previous value for that variable. So that's an important point that I want to make. Again, these commands are sort of in order. So if you redefine a variable, MATLAB is going to overwrite the value that you defined previously.